Agriculture. Here today we're just going to be running through the Prunion and Vinion 150s from Geelong. We are the dealership for Geelong in the Fleurieu and McLaren Vale region, so if you do need anything, come to us. Here we have the Vinion 150, which is mainly suited to the vineyard sort of industry, a bit smaller, capable of 35mm cuts. On the other side here we have the Prunion, which is more adaptable for the orchard industry. Just run through a couple of decent cuts. These can sort of cut up to about 65mm. So as you can see, and then the smaller cuts as well. Today we're just going to be running through basic maintenance, blade changes and the different settings we can use. So first off, I think we'll start with the blade change. So we want to open the snip up, turn off out the battery. Once this is done, we can remove the cable. Just make it a bit easier. All right. Here, best way to get this cover off at the front here is to squeeze the trigger and pull forwards. From this stage, this locking tab here, if you depress that, this tab nut will undo by hand. Once at this stage the nut's off, the bolt can just push straight through the blade, like so. Retaining washer slips off the pin. And as you can see, the blade's now loose, and this pin, bolt pin, just slips out.
So why do you have to maintain and do this, preferably that sort of stuff, once a week? How many cuts would a normal pruner do in a season?
Generally an average pruner does about 15 to 20,000 cuts a day. The more sort of higher end pruners can get up to about 30,000, so imagine it's quite a bit of work for a pruner.
So in a year, what would that be, over a million
over
or so?
Over a million, yeah, definitely in a full season. So yeah, we generally try to get our clients to do this either once a day or once or twice a week is good. We just need to get a bit of grease in between the blade and the linkages, so it's all lubricated. So basically from here, as you can see, you've got your linkage arms there. So basically we just want some grease in between the linkages and on the pivot of the blade. So doesn't need to be much, but all right. Bit on the pin. All right, from here, the blade can just slip in between those two arms. Pin back through. Now retaining washer on to that pin, and now the blade is secure and can't come through there. Next bit is a little bit tricky. We basically put the blade on there where the pivot is. Bit of grease on the main pivot pin. Right. This flat tab on the top here needs to line up with the flat surface on the blade. So basically, retaining washer, easiest way is like so. Retaining washer slips up to there, and that tab has to face forwards where the blade flat edge is, and then straight through like that. The locking nut faces flat edge down, like so. Yeah, this is just done up by hand. Don't need to use multi-grips or anything like that to get the required
Why is that?
If you find they are done up too tight, the grease will get too hot and burn out, and then you've got no lubrication. It's basically metal on metal.
So that does a lot of pressure on the ball nut too?
Yes, exactly. Basically all the linkage all through the motor, it's all excess force needed. So basically this washer up here is for tension. So basically you want it to be firm, tight but firm sort of thing, so you can still move it with your thumb. After you start the tool back up and do some cutting, it's worth checking that 15 minutes later, just if it does sort of loosen up a bit. So from there, snip can get plugged back in. And back on.
So just for lubricating once a day, how would you do it?
Lubricating once a day, same thing. Always turn your snip off when you're working on them, just for safety. Open the secateurs back up. If you don't have to take the whole blade apart, but if you depress that locking washer, undo the nut, that gap in between the blade and the anvil, if you can get some grease in there, that's the main.
And not over greasing
Yes,
too, I would imagine.
Exactly. You don't want grease pouring out the sides of everything, so.
Okay.